Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my action VHS and Laserdisc collection. This video was requested by Bedmax Gamers 033, Scoop Digger Omnitrix THX, and Marcus Walker, so thank you all for the suggestion, and without further ado, let's get started with the VHS. We got the Blues Brothers. Here's the tape. Print date is the second week of 1988. The Empire Strikes Back. Here's the tape. No print date. The Star Wars Trilogy 1995 release. Here's Star Wars A New Hope. Here's the tape. Print date is the 46th week of 1995. The Empire Strikes Back. Here's the tape. Print date is the 46th week of 1995. Return of the Jedi. Here's the tape. Print date is the 46th week of 1995. The Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. Here's Star Wars A New Hope. Here's the tape. Print date is the 28th week of 1997. The Empire Strikes Back. Here's the tape. Print date is the 28th week of 1997. Return of the Jedi. Here's the tape. Print date is the 42nd week of 1996. Star Wars Trilogy 2000s release. Here's Star Wars A New Hope. Here's the tape. Print date is September 2nd, 2000. The Empire Strikes Back. Here's the tape. Print date is August 31st, 2000. Return of the Jedi. Here's the tape. Print date is September 6th, 2000. Scarface. Here's tape 1. Print date is the 9th week of 1999. In tape 2, print date is the 9th week of 1999. The Terminator. Here's the tape. Print date is the 32nd week of 1989. The Alien Trilogy. We got Alien. Here's the tape. Print date is the 41st week of 1995. Aliens. Here's the tape. Print date is the 12th week of 1992. Alien 3. Here's the tape. Print date is the 41st week of 1995. Predator. Here's the tape. Print date is the 2nd week of 1996. Die Hard. Here's the tape. Print date is the 8th week of 1994. Batman. Here's the tape. Print date is September 5th, 1989. The Indiana Jones trilogy. We got Raiders of the Lost Ark. Here's the tape. Print date is the 41st week of 1999. Temple of Doom. Here's the tape. Print date is the 41st week of 1999. Last Crusade. Here's the tape. Print date is the 41st week of 1999. Die Hard 2. Here's the tape. Print date is the 16th week of 1995. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Here's the tape. Print date is the 37th week of 1998. The Fugitive. Here's the tape. Print date is February 13th, 1994. Speed. Here's the tape. Print date is the 43rd week of 1994. True Lies. Here's the tape. Print date is the 13th week of 1995. Bad Boys. Here's the tape. No print date. Die Hard with a Vengeance. Here's the tape. Print date is the 47th week of 1995. GoldenEye. Here's the tape. And no print date. Mission Impossible. Here's the tape. Print date is the 42nd week of 1996. Twister. Here's the tape. Print date is August 12th, 1996. Air Force One. Here's the tape. Print date is the 26th week of 2001. Men in Black. Here's the tape. Print date is the 39th week of 1997. Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Here's the tape. And no print date. Gone in 60 Seconds. Here's the tape. Print date is April 7th, 2001. Mission Impossible 2. Here's the tape. Print date is the 41st week of 2000. X-Men. Here's the tape. No print date. The Fast and the Furious. Here's the tape. Print date is the 29th week of 2002. Men in Black 2. Here's the tape. Print date is the 38th week of 2002. Spider-Man. Here's the tape. Print date is the 33rd week of 2002. Star Wars Attack of the Clones. Here's the tape. And no print date. Triple X. Here's the tape. Print date is the 47th week of 2002. Too Fast, Too Furious. Here's the tape. Print date is the 38th week of 2003. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Here's the tape. Print date is November 5th, 2003. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Here's the tape. Print date is October 10th, 2003. X2. Here's the tape. No print date. Spider-Man 2. Here's the tape. And no print date. Now we got some custom VHS of the remaining Star Wars movies. We got Revenge of the Sith. Here's the tape. The Force Awakens. Here's the tape. Rogue One. Here's the tape. The Last Jedi. Here's the tape. Solo. Here's the tape. And finally, Rise of Skywalker. Here's the tape. Now on to the Laserdiscs. We got the Star Wars Trilogy, The Definitive Collection. We got Star Wars A New Hope. The Empire Strikes Back. Return of the Jedi. The Guide. And a hardback copy of George Lucas, The Creative Impulse. Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. We got the guide. And all the discs. Star Wars A New Hope 1995 release. The Empire Strikes Back 1995 release. Return of the Jedi, 1995 release. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Predator. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. K9. The Hunt for Red October. Speed. True Lies. Die Hard with a Vengeance. GoldenEye. And finally, Twister. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any requests on videos you would like me to do, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you on the next one.